That was a new tune, right?
More or less,
I've never
yes.
heard that one before. And then Pavana, we're going to come full circle. Pavana is going to lead the final kirtan as well.
Right.
So what we did last week, we started off with everybody sharing a little something from their week. Could be a up thing or a down thing. Could be a challenge. Could be a triumph. Said that when you share a triumph, it doubles the pleasure. When you share a sorrow, it cuts it in half. So I'll start off. I don't know what this is, whether this is a sorrow or a triumph. I don't know how to categorize this. It's just something that was very interesting to me, and something that as you age, you should know about it. It's my duty to share this with you. At 74 years old, one of the just 2 or 3 pleasures that are left to me are having a good sneeze. I don't know if anyone can relate to that or not, but when I feel a sneeze coming on, I want to get the most out of it. And I feel like it's also expelling as much bad air from the lungs and promoting good health as possible. So I'll expand my lungs and really, really, sometimes people in the room or even 100 feet away will jump out of their skin when they hear me sneeze. It's so sharp and explosive. Anyway, make a long story short, a week or so ago, I started feeling like really tenderness in my ribs, and I couldn't lie on that side at night to sleep, and I couldn't breathe. And I thought, well, I haven't fallen, I didn't get hit, I didn't get a blow or anything. And then I thought, could I possibly have cracked a rib while I was sneezing? And I looked it up, and apparently that's what happened. It's quite common. So this material life it's like eating sweet rice but has sand in it. So Krishna took one of my only pleasures left in life and put sand in it. Now I can't expand my lungs as much as I want to get a full sneeze anymore. So that's my brilliant, shining offering for the week. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
And the real challenge is to some or other connect some of these things to the verse today. Let's see who can connect that.
Okay, I'll give it my best. I had a family come in, their daughters.
Can you move the volume up a little bit, Pavana?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's a little better.
Okay, I'm going to get closer to the mic. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a family, and their daughter is struggling with depression. She's an adolescent, and they don't have insurance, and they're struggling financially with the economy. And I said, I'm going to see her pro bono, because the most important thing is to take care of her. So turns out that Dad is a website designer, and in exchange for my services, he is building me a website. And I've just seen the previews of it, and it is gorgeous, and for free. So talk about, I don't know, just feeling like charity sometimes has, you get rewards from it. That's how I feel about that. But it just was mind-boggling.
That's nice. You have something to share, Radhe Shyam?
Oh yeah, this week down, a week ago my computer shut down. So I immediately appreciated all the association and my daily listening of Krishna conscious katha. So like 10 years ago, I would go on the street or to my friends and just figure out what's going on. It looks like I never had to any program, anything. I was just translating and do something Krishna consciousness, and I forgot that how the Kali Yuga went up. So when I was trying to fix the problem, I wasted whole week, like 100 hours on it. There's so many upgrade, every year upgrade and every update. If you bought something, then after 3-5 years, it's become useless, or you gotta to something about pay more online. So I was in shock how they can you guys. So Prabhupada said the book like 50 years ago when I was born, and they're always fresh. Nothing is changing. But whatever is what's called the created, made in modern times, especially the electronics, they are gone in 2-3 years. You take one thing, even or like phone, we got some security cameras. They are my old phone. I never thought that I would buy phone, and these days it got it's old operating system. You cannot install security cameras. So all this like blowing mind down. I was in shock. It was like 10-15 years I was sleeping and I didn't know what's going on in the world. So it gives all appreciation on Krishna association that it's never changes, it's full of bliss, and you always back to that. And hopefully I will figure out and I will not be sitting.
Okay.
I little also disturbed Rakesh Prabhu if he has anything about this. So he gave some advice what to do. So the Kali Yuga is, and I was telling to Pavana that all these things are created by low-class Kali Yuga people, and they are creating it just for short time, and everybody is jumping, oh, this is new this year, and next year it's, or like 5-10 years, it's useless. So all this changing, I was thinking, it's what will do the next generation is they all will look on phones and computers and on just look on with upgradation or updates. So our Krishna consciousness is not changing, it's wonderful. And the more we come into it, it's, as Prabhupada says, don't change anything. It's amazing. So we don't have to, it's like, we don't have to worry, have anxiety of that if something is changing. It's just as it is and just enjoy it and help others. That's it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry for down news.
Down news.
All right. Rob, on my screen, you're the next one.
Thanks to Rakesh Prabhu who gave me good advice, and so okay.
No, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sorry, I was not able to help completely. I wish I had that thing to help you, but I'm glad if I was able to help in any way. Hare Krishna.
Rob, you have anything you want to share with us about
Yeah,
your
I
previous?
do. Thank you for including me and allowing me to be a part of this and have your association. So this last week, especially after last week's meeting, I really have been focusing on forgiveness, forgiveness for others. If for no other reason than I know I can't forgive myself or seek forgiveness if I'm not willing to forgive others. And so I've been trying to really apply that as much as I can in my life this week. And it's brought me some measure of peace, and I'm very grateful for that.
Super. That's actually a continuum from what you said last week. Good to have that connection. Thank you for sharing that. Kapilji, Ishan.
Haircut? Oh, Ishan has a new haircut, so he's excited about it.
Yeah, I had to look twice to make sure it was him.
So I think two incidents I would quote. The drive back from our temple last evening was amazing. Vinita and we were talking about some of the aspects of your talk, especially relationships and friends, and not only here in the US, but also in India. And then also last Saturday, when I was driving back from the temple after giving the lecture, there were a few aspects of the point that I highlighted, that no energy vampires are allowed. And I said that sometimes we do let the energy vampires allowed board our bus. So how can we see, preaching is one thing and standing and telling people, but how can we internalize and then focus on, do it in a manner that it is not abrasive. And I got the message last evening when you said that, oh, I'm making some changes, but you don't need to beat the drums, telling them that you're making those changes. So those 2-3 things happened very nicely. And we also started reading Bhagavad Gita with one of our relatives in Houston. So that's a new thing. And
Wonderful, wonderful. Kapil is referring to a joke we made last night about maybe getting new friends. A lady left a message on her answering machine. She said, sorry for not answering the phone, but I'm making a few changes in my life. And if I don't answer you back, it means you're one of those changes. And Rob also, as far as forgiveness comes, I think we touched on that too, about not letting the sun go down and having bitterness in your heart. When you go to bed at night, make sure that you clear your heart out, forgive the people that did you wrong, and go to bed with a clear conscience. Then you'll wake up the same way. Rakesh, Ishan, in your young life, what would you like to share with us?
We had another debate tournament this weekend. I'd say we did pretty well. We did pretty. I mean, I guess we could call it a successful run. Like we didn't win it, but we were in the top 4, top 5 teams there. So that was good. But
Out of how many teams?
this one was a relatively small tournament. There were like I think 25 teams, something like that. Yeah, but usually the tournaments we go to have upwards of 100 teams going. So to do, we usually get like top 20 in those, but to get to, I think semifinals is when we lost this tournament. So I think that was good. But yeah, that and my haircut.
Okay, all right. Rakesh, what's new?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, everyone. Dandot Pranam. Prabhuji, nothing new as such. There are a few things going on, and sometimes you have a phase in your life where you don't feel that motivated, or you feel like, oh, things are not going as per the plan. But whenever I hear lectures from you or on YouTube and join this class, that keeps reminding me that it's all right, because we have to just keep remembering that we are not the doer. Krishna is the one who is doing. And even though we feel like, oh, things are not going as per our plan, but just keep faith that Krishna has a better plan. So that helps me kind of feel peace. Otherwise, there have been times when I was not feeling that motivated. I was like, why is this happening? So the whole 2020 has been a fun year, as for many of us, for me as well in many aspects. But I'm glad that I'm part of Krishna consciousness. I have a wonderful and lovely family of devotees that I can think I'm part of, and I can go to any of you for help whenever I need. So that's a good thing, being part of the Krishna conscious family. And one thing new happened is my elder daughter Divyansha Shubhi. She has this spelling bee competition every year in her school. So it happens at the class level. So from last 2 years, she like they continue with all the kids and keep moving to the harder levels. I think they give spelling bee until I think middle school level for these kids in 3rd grade, 4th grade. So last 2 years she was the last 2 finalists, and she used to lose. But this year she won it, so now she'll be competing for the school B level competition. So one thing that she changed this year was she does this writing to improve her writing practice every day. So the idea was to not write just your stories or ABCs to improve her writing. She was writing the spellings that of those 300, 400 words every day, 3 pages. So that's one thing I think I'll try to keep in my life, is that okay, if we practice, because even Krishna consciousness or bhakti is practice. If we keep practicing, maybe just read one page or remind one thing, read one shloka, but that continuous practice will keep us on the right path and give us the right mindset. So that's new. She's pretty excited that she won it this year, and she's preparing for the school B competition now. And this also gives me a direction that we should follow this practice of continuous practice. So that's what I want to share, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Hari Bo. Congratulations to Subi. Govinda Dev, what do you have to share?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please
We can't hear you. We can't hear you at all.
Hare Krishna. Sorry about that. Please accept my humble obeisances. This has been a great weekend for me because my dear wife is out of town since Thursday, and Friday I was able to make it to Arti 3 times during the day, which I've never done before. And then Mangal Arti and the program last night and Mangal Arti this morning. I just have to report, it has a kind of a cumulative effect when you are worshiping. And probably old news for some on this call. And not that it's a great surprise, but it's just been a real blessing for me. And in particular, it's, I think, worth noting that we've had the largest groups of people for Mangal Arti yesterday and today that I've ever seen. I mean, there have been many, many days when I've been there when it has been me and Govinda Bhakta. It's not that way now because of Onkar and Sundari Priya, but we've had, I think this morning, maybe 10 or 11 people. Caru was there. And it's a very, it's such a beautiful, intimate way to begin your day in communion with Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Really, really, that's the highlight of my week.
Jai ho, Haribo. Thank you. That's definitely up stuff. Sarabi.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Haribo, good morning, Sarabi.
Good morning. So I have few things. First, I think I spent 2 hours listening to your lectures. One was on Holy Cow, and you know my name is Surabhi, so there was a connecting dot right there. And then yesterday also I heard your talk about, and the most prominent word which came out for me was discipline. So 2 things there. And then third thing, this morning I heard about Dhruv Stuti by Govinda Bhakta Prabhu. And this is I started Ekadashi Vrat on Gita Jayanti. So this is my 4th Ekadashi Vrat.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to read today about hearing cuts the hard knot of false ego. Simply hearing. So from your report, it sounds like you're taking full advantage of hearing transcendental sound, which has the result of detaching us from material nature. Tushar, are you there? We're joined by Tushar for the first time, but we don't have an image, so I'm not sure if he's available or not.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Tushar's wife. I don't know why it's saying Tushar, but
Okay.
I'm Shubhada, and this is my first time joining this Zoom meeting, but I am not at all ready to say anything. I mean, didn't give it much a thought.
Can you type your name in the chat, at least so we can?
Yes, I will do that.
Just go ahead and say everyone and just type your name in the chat. And if there's anything you want to type, maybe you don't want to speak it, you want to type anything, even a Hare Krishna or anything, feel free to.
Yes.
Okay, super. So I think, is that everybody? Did I overlook somebody? Is that everybody? Oh, Subhada. Okay, got it. Subhada. And your last name?
My last name is Rampure.
Rampure. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been on our calls before. And you're sometimes with us on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for Bhagavatam class as well.
Yes, I'm the one. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Pavana and read the verse and some of the purport and anything that you might have heard anyone say, share. If you want to tie that in, feel free to do so. Anyone else can jump in with a question, an insight, a challenge, a realization. Prabhupada used to love the give and take of the philosophy. Ishan, we have an experienced debater here, so you're welcome to stir the pot, turn up the flame if you like. And anything goes. All right.
Okay.
Bhavana, we're in the 15th verse, second chapter, first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay, with sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. You want me to keep going?
Make some comments on that if you have any, and then we'll pass it on to another to read the next paragraph.
Okay, perfect. Oh boy, this last sentence just rang home for me because, I remember.
Read myself.
Pardon?
I've got the whole sentence in red myself.
Yes. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualize the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. And you just think back when you were a neophyte devotee and where you are now, and day by day by day by day, your connection, my connection with Krishna has just grown and grown and grown, especially in the last, I'm going to say 2-3 weeks. I shared this with George the other day as a message. It just feels like suddenly I feel closer to Krishna in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It just sort of jump started, just a much more closer connection with Krishna. And that gradual process of you become more spiritualized over time, day by day.
What does a knot of material bondage mean to you in your own words?
Kind of trapped.
Okay.
I mean, here we are in this material world, and really there's only one way of getting out, and that's through Krishna consciousness.
Super. All right. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. Who wants to go next? Who wants to read the next paragraph and comment? Kapil?
Yes, Prabhu, we can.
Liberation from material bondage is, therefore, a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with a devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord. I think it's actually really funny because yesterday I was during my free time between rounds, I was just listening to a discussion. It wasn't really a talk, but it was a discussion between two devotees. So, and it was Sanatan Dharma Prabhu who was answering the questions. So, and the kind of discussion of the topic was how do we balance our normal lives with our spiritual lives, and how can we, because the kind of the core point of the talk was about how we like if we only start focusing on just doing the karma, right, and not necessarily the fruitive works or the what we get from that karma, why would we still want to do work? What is the point of doing work if like we're not focusing on the fruits anymore? And because Sanatana Dharma Prabhu is renunciate. So what does that look like for him in his life compared to your average middle class man? And I think that a lot of those points that were there from his discussion apply here too, about how it kind of talks about like the way different process of bhakti or different levels of bhakti have, and the connection that they have with karma or the reactionary work that we do. And I really like the word overcoded that's continually used. So it's not that you're only taking in just the karma, but you're taking in karma like dipped in karma yoga or jnana yoga. And so that's what I got from this verse or this paragraph.
The urge amongst people in general to get some fruit, they want to see a result from their work, is so strong that Prabhupada said people can take for their own fruitive gain, they can take sand and they can turn it into gold. So strong is their desire to work fruitively to get something as a result. And you take that away, and you take away all inspiration. I'll give another example that in communist Russia, when people had no private property, everything belonged to the state. It said a Russian tank, you could see a Russian tank coming 5 miles away because there was a big pillar of smoke coming out of it. And no one cared to maintain the tank. No one took pride in maintaining and keeping things up because they didn't feel a sense of ownership. So everything just deteriorated because people had no motivation. But he said Krishna consciousness is spiritual communism. You take pride, you exhibit a spirit of excellence, not for your own name and fame, but for glorifying and honoring Krishna. That's actually the way that a society without private property can work, and how all the people can be fired up and even more motivated than in a capitalistic society. So a good point, Ishan.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to add is that I've been noticing especially this debate season, every single time I get frustrated with myself, it's because I work because debate is a very research intensive activity. So we work 5-6 hours a week on making sure we're up to date with all the politics. We're up, we've read all the recent New York Times articles, Washington Post articles. And then when you do that much work and you go to a debate tournament and you get knocked out in quarterfinals.
Of course, that's all fake news, right? Never mind. It's just a joke.
And when you do all this work and then you go to the debate tournament, you get knocked out in the round of 16 or the quarterfinals. It's not like we feel like, wow, we actually beat, 40 other teams that actually got to the round of 16. But it's that fact that we actually lost in the round of 16, even though we're working 6-7 hours a week. We should be, able to get to semifinals or finals or win the tournament. And so I've noticed that this kind of desire of just winning tournaments kind of starts to take away from the desire of actually learning, because obviously all this research comes with a lot of learning. You dive deep into a lot of things. And so it started to feel like I wasn't caring about how much I was learning anymore. I wasn't caring about the new skills I was gaining or the rounds I was losing against nationally ranked teams. I wasn't learning from them. I was just starting to be like, we should have been able to win that round. And so I think that a lot of times this desire of winning or having something that you don't have takes away from the real fruits that you gain from doing an activity.
Wow, really good point.
Yeah, I'll quickly make an addition to this. So thanks, Ishan. Oh, for me, I think this comes in the full circle as we read last time. Last time, the last Saturday or Sunday, it was one pointed attention one should glorify and remember. Now in this verse, it says, then who will not pay attention to it once you know this formula? So I think talking about three important things here is one, Krishna giving us the right weapon, the sword of intelligence. So that is first thing. The second thing is providing us the immunity. Uh, as Rakesh Prabhu mentioned that we all had a funny year or experience a year, the 2020. This verse talks about the immunity from the bondage. And then finally, the formula that how can you overcome that. So Prabhu, my understanding is and I think this is a very nice connection or the message that Prabhupada gave in the 4th chapter in a few of the verses, especially the 4.14, where it is mentioned that itima yobhi najayanti karm brahme sab bandhate, which means that one who knows of this relationship with me and remember me, that's the formula for him or her to come back to me. As it is mentioned that in Krishna consciousness, or generally we face two sort of individuals, people who are materially driven and people who are free from material contaminations. And Prabhupada make a very nice mention that this process of bhakti, which is not only understanding your relationship with Krishna, because the process starts from there. And it was very nicely mentioned that if you want to know who you are, you need to know who Krishna is. Because without knowing Krishna, and in that process of knowing Krishna, you know about yourself and you know how small you are. And once you define that relationship with every relationship, be it material or spiritual, the next step is the step of service. That okay, now I know that what is my position in this relationship and what is Krishna's position or my friend's position or my spouse position in this particular situation. So that brings the attitude of service. And it is hard for you to serve someone without knowing about them. So Krishna is talking about that his birth, his activities, and he himself, and all the pastimes that in any incarnation when he comes, those pastimes are spiritual. And as Pavana Mataji was reading, she made a very nice mention that constantly focusing on those, and once you do that, because this is his birth, his activities, his pastimes, all of them are spiritual, gradually that can also help you to advance and progress on the path of bhakti. So once you understand the relationship, now you know the service, then Krishna, he says it very boldly, the promise that then I'll give you the intelligence by which you can come back to me. So he's giving us the weapon. And Caru, as you made a mention of, we think that we are eating the sweet rice, but and later we realize that it is the sand, because it's all about those fruitive results that we receive that creates the bondage. So I think in the 4th chapter, it was very nicely mentioned in the 14th verse, 15th verse, and the 16th verse, that what is the difference when you focus on the karma kand aspects of our scriptures. And Krishna will give you, ye yathamam prapadante, with whatever mode you approach him, he'll make sure that you receive that. But that won't last long. So the next step is glorifying, remembering, and he's making it very easy. As I said, that it's a formula. He's making it very easy that just remember and talk about me. And by doing that, I'll give you the sword and I'll give you the right weapons by which you can disconnect this knot and come back to me. So Prabhu, that's my understanding of this verse.
Very, very wonderful. Seems to me there's 3 options. One is the communist is to just try to give up and work without any attachment at all. And the other is to work with all the results coming to you. And then the third alternative is to work giving all the results to honor Krishna. So who can tell us why I get more pleasure from honoring Krishna than I do from giving up everything on the one hand, or trying to enjoy everything on the other hand? What is the compelling feature of giving everything to Krishna? What do we get out of that? Because ultimately, it has to come back to our own best interest. So why is working on behalf of Krishna, giving the fruits to Krishna, more in my self-interest than accumulating material assets for myself?
Because we're spirit souls, and the only purpose of this human life is to learn how to go back to Krishna and how to have, a loving relationship with Krishna. That is the meaning of this life. And so it's rewarding on so many levels, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and it gives you peace. It absolutely does.
Does anybody, and George seems to have a lot of these stories, uh, does anybody have a personal story about a festival or an event they were at that was to honor Krishna and they felt something that they had never felt before in material life? Something that just set the Krishna conscious experience head and shoulders above any pleasure or stimulation that one could get from matter. Anybody has any story to share?
So I just have a quick one. A few months ago, I think earlier 2020, where I gave a presentation in our SLC Krishna temple, and I remember Rakesh Prabhu was there, and there were a few other folks. After giving that message, I was thinking that this is not the best of me. I could always do much better, and with all the confidence, all that good stuff. But I remember I went to Rakesh Prabhu and some other folks there, and I said that they were, when I was doing it in the beginning, there were, so the topic was when you run alone, it is considered as race, but when you run with Krishna, the race will become grace. And so that was the main message. And I said that there were aspects of this talk, there were examples, there were a lot of things that came to my mind during that presentation where I was feeling that I'm getting closer to Krishna.
Great. Any other? By the way, we're joined on Facebook by Sankirtan Das, a great devotee from New Vrindavan. We just ordered a case of his Mahabharats. Greg, Kapitan Sanjay Sharma, Frank Draper is on board with us. Thanks, Frank. Good morning. Jean Eskelson and Prapanat Gopal, who often joins us. They're with us on Facebook Live.
Okay, I have to say something. One
Just a
day,
personal experience?
a few months ago, we were in the temple and there was a kirtan going on, and I just felt something I never felt before, like this excitement and happiness.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
I also.
She wants to read her Krishna book.
No, it's
No?
not that.
Oh, okay, you want to say something?
I got a list too, and the teacher gave me a candy and $10. $10.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, also at the Sadhu Sangha retreat, we've been there once, and it was just, it's like a very different level of being there, like in person with all those devotees around you, singing and dancing. And another time I had that same kind of experience or that same feeling was during Janmashtami, when we were at the Salt Lake City temple. We have so many wonderful kirtaniers here at the Salt Lake City Krishna Temple, Jai Krishna Prabhu, and obviously everyone here in this talk. And just like kind of feeling that you had, I remember because Divyam and I, we had to switch between us playing Mridang since it was a longer kind of thing. So he'd go and then I'd do the next one, and then he'd do the next one so we wouldn't get tired. And usually like I wouldn't be able to play that long of kirtan or that long Mridang, but it wasn't as if I could feel like the pain. I couldn't feel anything, right? My hands are just moving, and Divyam wasn't getting tired. I wasn't getting tired, and we were both almost like ready to play together and not, switch between, because we just both weren't getting tired anymore. And I think that kind of feeling, it's yeah. I never had that kind of feeling before.
Nice. I remember in Australia, we had we'd rented a row house. It was long and narrow, and there was a railing that separated the congregation from the deities. It was about knee high, and it was about 6 inches wide. And there was a bell there for greeting the deities. So it was Janmashtami, and we'd pretty much been chanting japa or kirtan all day long. It was getting close to the midnight hour. In addition to the Madanga and the Kartos, there was a devotee named Dvaipayana who also played the guitar. And he had the ability of playing the guitar really fast so that he could increase the tempo. So there were 50, 60 devotees there. And just as the midnight hour got closer, everybody just felt more and more free of the law of gravity, free of the bonds of material world. Certainly nobody was feeling any false ego at all. And Dvaipayana was strumming his guitar, leading the kirtans, getting faster and faster. And one by one, the strings started popping. I don't know, I think there are 6 strings on a guitar. So one string popped and another string popped. So by the time it got to be, 5 or 10 minutes before midnight, he was playing on 2 strings, and nobody thought anything of it. It was just there was no question of his stopping playing 5 minutes before midnight. So he's doing the best he can, playing on 2 strings. Everybody's jumping, chanting at the top of their lungs, just feeling totally spiritual. And what I particularly remember, we had one devotee, his name was Sanjay. He later left his body in Mayapur, Australian devotee, 69 years old. He's quite fit. And I remember as the clock counted down, 10 till midnight, 5 to midnight, this 69-year-old man had got up on the railing. He was standing on the railing with his knees crouched, and he was ringing that bell for everything it was worth. And what my takeaway was, I saw Dvaipayana playing with 2 strings on his guitar, Sanjaya standing on the railing, ringing the bell, devotees like levitating, and I remember thinking, this is nothing extraordinary. This is pretty much normal for the spiritual world.
That's a great story. I have a very specific recollection of John Mashtami about 5 years ago, and it was probably 10 minutes before midnight, and Jai Krishna was doing the kirtan on the stage. There was a big group gathered around the stage. The energy was just increasing, the sense of exuberance and happiness and joy. And I'm sure you won't remember this, Caru, but I remember looking over at you, our eyes directly connected. We were close to each other, and it was like we were both just levitating, like above the world. I mean, like literally you could feel like we weren't even in the world anymore. It was so full of rapture. And it's the possibility that exists that frankly is a great, I think for me, it's a great motivator. And in some measure, that is sort of normal. You do experience, it's not always like 4th of July, but it's always transcendental. Whenever you get together with devotees, actually.
Wonderful. Anybody else have to share what's above and beyond about giving everything, funneling everything to Krishna?
Caru, just by asking this question, you help us realize the importance of this verse. That most of the stories when people share, I think there's always, you can see the hand of Krishna in those pastimes or those experiences. So thank you for asking that question, because that helps us remember him.
I organized a Rath Yatra in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. I was the president of Berkeley in 1977. 20,000 people came to Mark's Meadows. We had kirtan all day long. We had a huge prasadam feast. Balakrishna from Canada would come and cook khichdi on stoves right there in the park. It was actually not a very nice day. It was overcast with intermittent showers. And the San Francisco Chronicle on Monday morning had a front page headline, 20,000 Krishnas brave blustery weather for festival in Golden Gate Park. And throughout the article, it repeatedly referred to the people who are at the festival as revelers. Now, revelers is a word that's usually associated with intoxication, alcohol, drugs, promiscuity, orgies. And yet there were no drugs, there were no alcohol, there were not even any cigarettes, there were none of those artificial stimulants on hand. And yet a dispassionate reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle, as he's noting all this down, the word that seems most appropriate to him is revelers. And it was the right word. People had, your false ego, when you're in community, when you're in a group, your false ego always has to take a back seat. You always have to compromise. It's give and take. That's what community is all about. But when that community is dedicated to Krishna, then the false ego has no place whatsoever. It is so out of place that it never even raises its head. It knows it's not welcome at the Krishna festivals, among the Krishna devotees. False ego is just like like a elephant in the china shop. It just is conspicuous by its absence. And the more community we have, the more connectivity we have, the more celebration we have, the more concern and love we have for each other. False ego just doesn't have a chance.
That's really great. Cut the knot.
Sarabi, I know you have the bug. What? Someone else is going to say something? Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, I just sort of summarizing, that cuts the knot of false ego. The false ego just has no place. It just explodes and it atomizes, then it's gone.
There's so much more pleasure honoring Krishna along with other devotees than trying to, call attention to yourself. It's so distasteful and unconscionable, it doesn't even come up.
Right.
Sarabi, you have the Bhagavatam in front of you? Your newly acquired set of Bhagavatams. Do you want to read the next paragraph here?
Okay. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshipping him always, without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures.
Great. Any thoughts on that? You or anybody? We have yeah, go ahead, please.
I would give others to talk about it. But the only thing which I can understand from here is, like, we talked about material world and all that. As we surround ourselves with the devotees and with the kirtana and all those things, I think that interest in the material world goes away automatically.
Exactly. Prabhupada says we're all pleasure-seeking living beings. The only problem is, normally we're searching for pleasure in the wrong place.
Exactly.
It's like we're searching for water in the desert.
Prabhuji, I want to mention, add something here. So in this verse, like we begin with, we are discussing how if a person is above average person, then he should understand that the purpose of this life is to hear about the Lord, glorify the Lord, and this will also help us unknotting the material bondage here. So the way I see it is that if we do something with the mindset of gaining some material pleasure, or thinking that we are the doer, then if we do great, then we always get puffed up, and there is a very high chance that we will have ego that, oh, I am the performer and I did great, whether it's an office, oh, I did great, or I gave a pretty great lecture, or I did something very good. And then we think that, okay, I'm above others and I can do great things. And that's very toxic if we want to progress in bhakti. If we keep that thing in the mind that I'm not the doer, even though we are doing that thing, but Krishna is the doer, we are just the means. If as I said earlier in one of the sessions, like, and I believe that if something has to happen, it will happen. We are just the means, and we are blessed that if we can be part of that. Otherwise, Krishna will have some arrangement for sure. If we are not going to do it, somebody else will show up and do it. Nothing is going to stop Krishna from getting that thing done. Perfect example, Prabhupada, when he was coming to the Western world, he didn't think that how he will do it. And the best thing is that that he had this faith on Krishna, that if it's the order from his spiritual master, then it's definitely an arrangement from Krishna, and he will make sure that this gets done. So even in our day-to-day life, if we can just keep Krishna in center and think that even though we are doing this thing from a material point of view or from the outside world, it looks like we are doing. But if we dedicate our actions and whatever we are doing and the fruits of it to Krishna, then we are not getting that karma. And I think to answer your question that you were asking, why somebody like when we are doing it and devoting our things to Krishna, our work to Krishna, why we feel that pleasure, it's because if we are doing it with the keeping Krishna in the center, then it becomes bhakti. It's no longer a material work. It's as good as bhakti. We are keeping ourselves free from that karma. And I had so many realizations coming to the Salt Lake Temple, like especially during our kirtan. That's the best part, kirtan and prasadam. So even for a person who is visiting first time and who doesn't understand what is a kirtan, but everybody understand the good food, the taste of a good food. And if they are like conscious of their health, come join us in the kirtan, jump, burn some calories. It's better than jumping jack or those boot camp classes. You come, burn your calories, and then eat nice prasadam. And knowingly or unknowingly, if the person is doing that, tasting the prasadam, then they are honoring Krishna, and it will definitely purify their consciousness. So that's my, I mean, there have been hundreds of times when I enjoy so much in Kirtan that I kept jumping or dancing, and we have those, I don't know what it is called, but we swing around holding hands. That's so much fun. I'm definitely missing that, and hopefully soon we will start having more people, and with this pandemic going away, we can all relish that thing again. So that's uh, my points on this thing. And as we'll read further, towards end of this first canto, Maharaj Parikshit is going to ask that, okay, what's the whole purpose of a person, like what he should do in his life, and when he is about to die, what he should do. So that's the summary is that, even because when Sukdev Goswami was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam and Namisharanya, there was thousands of sages, and they were discussing it for such a long time. But the gist was, whether it's Ashtanga yoga, karma yoga, any yoga, bhakti yoga is the best. And and worship to Krishna is the best way of bhakti yoga. And as we will discuss further, it will be like kind of proven, because it's written in this scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's proven that Krishna's bhakti is the best and bhakti yoga is the best. And that's my understanding, and that's what I want to share, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Rakesh, that reminds me of an interview with Prabhupada. I think he was a newspaper person, and he was asking, so what do the Krishnas do for recreation? And Prabhupada just kind of looked at him and said, what do you mean recreation? And he says, yeah, what do you do for recreation? Prabhupada says, it's all recreation, right?
We're talking about the knot of false ego, which manifests itself in terms of I, iPhone, iPad, iMarriage, I, everything's centered around me. But there's certain accoutrements, embellishments that cause that knot to be tightened. If you have a knot that's loose, you could probably on your own undo it, isn't it? But we've all come across a knot that due to force and circumstances has become so tightened that there's no way we can undo it ourselves. That without help, we can't undo it. Now, Krishna is described as that person who can untie the knot of false ego. But my question is, how is it, and can you cite the verse from the 5th canto, which describes the tightening of the knot to the point that without help, we really can't undo it? Anyone? This is a famous verse in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam by Rishabdev.
Which one is the act one? I would like to
Go
read.
ahead. If you've got a search feature, you can type in Hridaya Granthim. HRDAYA dash Granthim, GRANTHIM. If you have the database, you can type that in or type it in, and it'll take you to this verse.
I have a textbook. So which text are we reading? The 16th or the 15th?
Well, the verse that I'm steering you to will be found in the 5th canto, 5th chapter, 8th verse.
5th canto. Okay.
5th canto, 5th chapter, 8th verse. You want to read it out when you find it?
Yes.
This is how the knot becomes tightened. The result of which that one forgets about humanity, one forgets about the other species, the animals, one justifies and rationalizes focusing on a limited number of living entities who are the extensions of one's body. That is how one gets trapped in what Prahlad Maharaj calls the dark well of false ego. Anybody there yet?
Yes, Prabhu, I can read it.
Okay.
So, punsa striya mithuni bhametam tayo mitoride kantimahu ato grahashreto sutapti vite janasya moham aham mameti. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I'm only reading the translation. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusion and thinks in the terms of I and mine.
So by this verse, we're all kind of in trouble, right? Prabhupada said the Sanskrit word of woman, stri, means one who expands. So we see that as soon as there's that connection between a husband and a wife, then children come, then land comes, then homes come, then business comes, even charities come. And so the family circle, in the family circle, everybody's depending on the man for certain things. Everybody's depending on the mother for certain things. Everybody's deriving so much pleasure from the sweet soprano musical voices and antics of the children. So it becomes no longer outward looking, but it tends to become inward looking. Any thoughts on that? It becomes from extrinsic, because a Vaishnava, a devotee, is automatically concerned with the well-being of all living beings, and just as Krishna is. Krishna doesn't claim a limited group for his own. He claims all living beings for his own. And Krishna's thoughts are how to benefit every living being, not only humans, but animals. So Krishna is extrinsic. Krishna is always thinking universally. But when one gets married, gets children, his body selfishness extends. As the body reproduces, the actual opposite takes place, that one tends to be turned intrinsically, inward, and not concerned about the well-being of people and living entities in general. And one thinks one's in good shape as long as his family is well fed and well provided for. Everybody else can go to hell, more or less. So is that the danger? And how do we negate that? How do we trump that as Krishna conscious householders?
So as you mentioned last evening as well, that it is all about spreading and making sure that you are in the right association. So when you make intrinsic, like you just start focusing on yourself, that is very selfish. As you said, that once you're part, Krishna gave us all these varnashrams to make sure that we follow the dharmas that are mentioned in those varnashrams. But once, especially for householders, so often that you only focus on me and mine, and that, as you mentioned in this verse 5th canto, 5th chapter, 8th verse. So it's basically, if you want to really relish and make it permanent and also want to spread, as we discussed last time, that we all have, with Krishna's mercy, we have this very delicious plate of Krishna consciousness in front of us. And you can only enjoy it once you start distributing and sharing it with others. Otherwise, you are a miser. And that's what we discussed last time. The true definition of a miser is only focusing on themselves. Even on this path, like if you don't spread it, you won't enjoy it. When we all shared our realizations or experiences, no one said that I was sitting in a room alone and I experienced Krishna. In all the examples, there was other people. And that says a lot about this program.
And you know, the best examples were the ones like in Golden Gate Park with 20,000 people, at Janmashtami when you have maximum attendance in the temple. I gave a Janmashtami example. Govinda Dev gave a Janmashtami example. So what does that tell us? It tells us that our pleasure increases the more our community increases. In other words, spiritual pleasure multiplies itself to the degree that you multiply and your community. The more you share, the more bliss you get. Prabhupada gave the example like honey. Honey, you spill it on the table, and the first thing, its nature is that it spreads. So bhakti is meant to be shared. It's love. Love doesn't keep itself in a basement somewhere.
Sharbu, one quick question I have. In the second paragraph, the paragraph starts with liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct. So we understand that there are a lot of school of thought, they emphasize and focus on this concept of liberation. Whereas we say that in our tradition, that is a byproduct. Like that is not the ultimate goal one is aspiring for. It is more the service attitude, like redefining or understanding that relationship, serve him, develop the love through the devotion. So Charu, we just want to hear from you that why it is mentioned as a byproduct in our school of thought or our philosophy.
The highest attainment for a devotee is not liberation. As you yourself mentioned, liberation tends to be a solitary pursuit. It's pursued in solitude. It's enjoyed in solitude. The liberation that most aspirants imagine or envision for themselves is in isolation, enjoying their sat, their chit, their knowledge, their eternity. A devotee doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to be with the other devotees. He couldn't care less about being known, celebrated as a big scholar, about spinning out all kinds of speculative theories, getting a PhD, a Nobel Prize. Couldn't. That's just like garbage in the street. He couldn't care less about hovering in the Brahma Jyoti as a liberated soul. You know, he couldn't care less about any of that stuff. He doesn't even want it. All he wants is to be with the devotees, because the devotees remind him of Krishna. And whether he's in hell or in heaven, whether he's liberated or whether he's conditioned, technically speaking, all he wants to do is be with the devotees, because the devotees are serving Krishna, glorifying Krishna, honoring Krishna, and Krishna himself, his most preferred place of residence is not in the spiritual world. It's not in the hearts of the solitary yogis, but Krishna comes and sits wherever there are devotees gathered chanting his holy names. And the more devotees there are, the more happy Krishna is to come and sit down there. Now, when you go somewhere and you don't want to stay very long, you may remain standing. Your host may offer you a seat, but you say, no, I'm not going to be here very long. So you remain standing so that you can make your exit. Once you sit, you've made a commitment to talk, to chat, to accept some refreshments, to socialize, to develop your connectivity. So Krishna says that I don't just come and check in at where there's a kirtan or where there's a community of devotees. I come, I sit down, I reciprocate with them, I'm prepared to receive hospitality, I'm prepared to cultivate a connection and a relationship with them. So devotees know that Krishna is the property of the devotees. Where there are mental speculators, Krishna's not there. Krishna has no attraction to go hang around with all the professors. Where there's fruitive workers who are only interested in, making money, sex life, Krishna is not in any way. He's not only is he not attracted, he's actually doesn't. He's actually goes in the opposite direction. Sadhavaridhyam mayam sadhanamriyam varanyatana naham tebhyo managami. Krishna says, devotees are in my heart and I am in the hearts of the devotees. Wherever there's devotees, that's where I am. That's all a devotee wants. He wants to be with other genuine Krishna conscious devotees. So liberation, mental speculation, they have no attraction or no meaning for him. And if he is intellectually inclined and he likes to do mental exercises, but if there's some bhakti involved in there, woven into the equation, then he'll eventually outgrow his academicism. Same thing for the fruitive worker. Dhruva Maharaj had to go to Krishna to solve his problem. But after he saw Krishna, he said, I had been looking for pieces of broken glass and I got a valuable jewel. So Prabhupada says in this purport, I think 4 times he uses the word, what's the word? Overcoated. He says when mental speculation is overcoated, with bhakti, when fruitive work is overcoated, then it's successful. Otherwise, pursuing those avenues without any bhakti is pretty much a waste of time. Does that help?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Very helpful.
Why does Prabhupada mention twice here in the purport and later on in this purport to this verse in the 5th canto, why does he mention the Goswamis as ideal examples of what we're talking about? The Goswamis of Vrindavan specifically.
They're pure devotees.
And
Go on, Mataji.
They've cut the knot of material attraction with the sword of intelligence.
Absolutely.
They were.
And they're not just liberated. They're in a mood of constant celebration, which is why I'm pulling into the Krishna temple right now. Sorry to leave you guys behind, but Archie starts in 10 minutes.
What is it when you do 3? Is it a cricket term or something when you do 3?
It's a hat trick in soccer.
A hat trick, yeah.
Yeah, it's
so
a hat trick.
Do a hat trick for the 2nd day in a row, isn't it?
Well, I don't know what time Charlotte gets home tonight, but it could be two hat tricks. You guys can keep talking about this. I'm going in there to actually do it.
Hey, let's have this kirtan and all get in our cars and go to the temple.
Yeah.
I'm also on my way. I'll see you there.
Oh, good. Hari Bol.
Man, our meetings are so potent that just towards the end of them, everybody's headed for the temple.
Our meetings carry within themselves the seeds of their own destruction.
Their own disintegration.
Yes.
But you are going,
when I left the temple last night, I called and I spoke to my friend Guru Garanga, who I know through the ISKCON law department. And I was expressing to him something that was just really, really profoundly I was experiencing, which is that there is such a strong sense of family, of community, of like this real fraternal love that is experienced when you come to the temple. And it is not available anywhere else. It is so potent, and it's devotion. It's recognizing who you are and who God is. And the thing that's so great, and this is what we were, I think, talking about, it's a celebration. Where is the celebratory mood anywhere else in society right now? It's a celebration. A party is too cheap. It is truly, it's a transcend, it's I'm just blabbering on here, but it's the mood of celebration that is just it's really what continues to draw people. And I was really making Guru Garanga very, very jealous. He said, we're sort of locked down. We can't go to the temple right now in Florida. So we're all very, very blessed.
Krishna says it's the king of all knowledge. It's the peak of all education. It is the perfection of religion, and it is joyfully performed. Thanks very much on Facebook for Jayashri Radha joining us, Kusham, Demon, Radhesham, Marsha Pilgrim, Manasa Ganga, Sankirtan Das, Greg, Sanjay, Frank, Draper, Pomal, Oja, Jean, and Prapana Gopal, who wrote something in the comments. I shared it in the chat here, how he has one favorite temple where he likes to go and hear the Katha of Krishna and the Kirtans in his native Nepal. So thanks everyone for joining. Any last words before we revert to Bhavana and a closing Kirtan today? All right. By the time we finish this kirtan, both George and Rikesh and myself probably will be in the temples. Bob, any last thoughts at all?
Yeah,
No, I'm
okay.
just appreciative that I was able to
Oh,
be here and
okay.
hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you so much. Yes, back to Willa.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Well, thank you once again for joining on this call. Pavana, Radhesham, Kapil, Ishan, Shivan, Rakesh, Subi, Rob, Subhada, thanks for jumping in today. Surabi, appreciate you. Over there on Facebook, Prapanat Gopal, in response to that last contribution by Pavan, he says, I love Kirtan, Jai Sri Rama. Jaya Sri Radha says, sounds like an awesome temple and association to be in. And Kusham Demon says, she says, I cannot go away from this discussion with false ego.
Right.
I guess we were successful in our aim, cutting the false ego with the sharp sword of knowledge. So appreciate it. Mission successful. Devotee association achieved. Pleasure level far above normal. We'll see you again at the temple, and if not there, by next Sunday at 11 o'clock, when we'll discuss the 16th verse in the second chapter, first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Ram, Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Ram,
Hare
Ram Ram, Hare